Chapter 5 in Perkei Avos. Thank God it's awesome that we're at chapter 5 already, and it's awesome what we plan to learn afterwards. A reminder, we're planning to learn the book of Isaiah afterwards. So while there's a sale, I suppose I should mention, I'm probably going to center around the Art Scroll Milstein edition of the book of Isaiah, Sefer Yeshaya. So while the Hanukkah sale is on, and it's at least 20% on some days, it may be 40% off. But I should mention, just in case you wanted to pick up a copy, while the sale price is there. Art Scroll Milstein edition of Isaiah. Okay, now we are in chapter 5 of Perkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers. V'asar ma'amaros nivra ha'olam u'ma tamad lomar v'alo v'ma ma'achad yochel hi baros elid hi para min harashayim she'ma'abdim es olam shenivra b'asar ma'amaros levitim schar tov latzadikim she'mekaymin es olam shenivra b'asar ma'amaros. Do we have a volunteer reader, translator of the English?
I will. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'll let you do it.
Ladies first, I guess, and next Mishnah you could do.
Okay. Which number?
5:1.
Okay. The world was created with 10 utterances. What does this come to teach us? Certainly, it could have been created with a single utterance. However, this is in order to make the wicked accountable for destroying a world that was created with 10 utterances, and to reward the righteous for sustaining a world that was created with 10 utterances.
So if someone has let's say they have just a ball that they loan to their friend, and the friend loses the ball. So if it's a ball that they picked up for less than $1, and it was getting old anyway, so they really, it was almost a favor that they lost it. But if the ball was like signed by a major sports figure who has passed from the world, and it's probably valued at least $500,000, so the friend losing that ball may perform an act that is more painful to the owner of the ball if he should destroy it or lose it. Similarly, God invested more into this world so that he could reward people if they serve him. But the consequence, of course, if people don't serve him, there could be a bigger punishment. But here's a truism about this world, the one we're in now. This world is designed especially for the wicked. The next world is designed especially for the righteous. So now, since the purpose of this world is the next world, so the purpose of life is to help the righteous find value to their merits, increase their merits, and then when God rewards them in the future, it'll be a partially earned merit. It won't just be a charity, it will be something that they actually participated in acquiring. Whereas the wicked, they don't have to wait for the next world to be rewarded for any little good they may do. They're instantly rewarded. Often they become rich and whatever. And then they get all the rewards in this world and for the couple good things they've done. And then, they're lining up punishment for the next world. However, generally speaking, there is no there's not eternal damnation in Talmudic perspective. Hell is a purgatory. It's a place to cleanse away sins. It's not a place to suffer forever. What is the purpose of suffering forever? Only potentially as a punishment for someone who does a perpetual evil that affects others. So if someone killed people, so then as long as those people are dead, it makes sense that they may suffer, the unrepentant killer. they removed those people from the world, so obviously there's still a crime. But when a sin ends and there's no consequence to the innocent, so why would a wicked person have to suffer forever? It doesn't really make sense. That's one of the beautiful things about Talmudic perspective, and again, the Talmudic perspective is the traditions from the prophets. The last of the prophets, Ezra and Malachi, left to the first sages of the Talmud. So from the tradition of our prophets, we know that hell is not just eternal damnation. God is too merciful for that. And so now here we're talking about the concept of why does God create this world? For the sake of the next world. By making this world beautiful, it helps the wicked take care of the rewards that are due to them so that they're no longer stopping the righteous from enjoying heaven. Whereas the righteous, the complexity of this world, since there's a temptation to do evil, and when somebody fights the evil inclination, they're suppressing potential destruction against a very beautiful and complex world. So therefore, they gain greater merit, and they achieve greater merit for all eternity. So we see that the creating of a more fantastic world only furthers both goals. So the complexity is 10 divine statements, and of course the number 10 relates to 10 commandments, and number 10 also relates to the 10 spheros in Kabbalah. All the foundations of the world are tied into this concept that the incredible depth and beauty of everything that God does was to make things better for people. If God wanted to, he could have just put us all in a giant metal box with every color could have been gray. He didn't have to make so many colors. He didn't have to make so much foliage, so many diverse species. He didn't have to make so many animals, so many exotic animals, so many friendly, cute animals. He didn't have to make people who breed little cute babies. He could have just made them clones. This clone, this clone, this clone. They could have been born as adults. So God did everything to make things more complex and therefore allow greater reward for the righteous in the next world and for the wicked in this world. Any questions?
I'm wondering why when Hashem made all those animals, and didn't he make the people to always treat them nice, because sometimes the people are mean to them?
Well, the thing about this world is that humans were empowered to program it. It wasn't just only made by God. It was made by God with edit permissions granted to the users. So when Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava sinned, they created the capacity for sin in their progeny. And when the next generation did worse sins, they created a capacity for worse sins. Next generation did worse sins, they did a capacity for more worse sins. Conversely, we find, and we're going to touch upon it inside, in the next Mishnah, is that people also made the world a better place. So we're going to go to the next Mishnah and talk about that. But just to understand the ideal, the goal is, as the prophets say, the lion and the wolf will be able to be with the sheep, and the one animal will not fear the other one eating them. The idea is that when Adam and Eve were first put into the Garden of Eden, there were no carnivores. When there was sin, there became a corruption of even animal life, and the worse the sin got, the more corrupt animals became. But there were no carnivores until there was sin. It's very, very important to understand. And so that's going to be rectified after Mashiach comes. We're going to eventually get back to the level where the wolf and lamb could lay down together, and the lamb won't be a meal. They could share food together. So that's the ideal. But God created the world where each generation could program it to a certain extent. The earlier generations had a more profound effect. So Adam and Eve just sinned once, and they totally altered the world. Whereas now people have to work hard and create something new in the world. I heard a Democrat doctor credits President Trump with creating a new method to advance medicines in the world. He couldn't imagine having a vaccine in less than 3 years before this year, and he said that it's like a new change in the world happened. You have to admit it, that the president did something wonderful. Of course, God did it, but the fact is that we see that that person can still change the world to an extent, but they have to work much harder. They have to work in groups. But the basic programming of the world was affected much easier the farther back you go. So with Adam and Eve, even one sin, even without fully knowing the consequences, not utterly as evil as some of their descendants became, still it was enough to create enough evil in the world to make problems for but we're at the time where it's about to be rectified. So of course we could discuss injustices, but that's almost a thing of the past. We're almost at the stage where according to the prophecies, Mashiach has to come. Okay, so let's go to the next Mishnah, where it talks about the generations following the creation. Asar daros me Adam bad Noach lo'odia kama erech hapayim lefanov. Shekol daros hayu machisin uvayin ad shehevi alehem es mei hamabul. Could we have a translator from 10 generations until the waters of the flood?
Sure. There are 10 generations from Adam to Noah. This is to teach us the extent of God's tolerance. For all these generations angered him until he brought upon them the waters of the flood.
Okay, so they also programmed the world. In that case, they were programming the world to be destroyed, but not utterly destroyed. It's still God's world. This is one of the ways where we see when we pray that God is the master of the world. He is the master of the world. He changes the world according to the humans' requested programming, but he doesn't change it according to their agenda. He changes it according to his own agenda. That makes, that's one of the signs that he's the real master. Asar doros min Noach v'ad Abraham lo'odia kama erech hapayim lefanov shekol hadoros hayu machisin uvayin ad sheba Avram kibel love schar kulam. And could you translate the second half of the Mishnah also?
Sure. There were 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. This is to teach us the extent of God's tolerance. For all these generations angered him till Abraham came and reaped the reward for them all.
Okay, so we're going to discuss the juxtaposition of the first Mishnah, half of the Mishnah, where it talks about humans in ways other than words, requesting that God destroy the world, the human choice for nihilism, and then we're going to discuss that the human choice to serve God, which it was amazing, even majestic that a human could rise to that level, but it's also kind of terrifying that in the previous concept, everybody was working together to destroy the world. And in this second concept, it's making it sound like only Abraham rose up to change the world back towards God's plan. So taken to the ultimate potential, that is kind of terrifying. Then in 20 generations, only one righteous person rose up to kind of say, God, let's go back to the way you had it in the Garden of Eden. Okay, but there's more to it than that. Let's go to, for those of you who have Avos to Rabbi Nassan, the Brisa, and it's a sister text to Perkei Avos to Rabbi Nassan. So I forgot which one of you has it. Whoever does have it, I would like someone to be ready to translate. We're going to go to page 442 in Avos to Rabbi Nassan. That's chapter 32, the first Brisa. Okay, so I'm only going to read the first brisa, just the first half of the first brisa, first half of the first paragraph. Okay, and then whoever has the art scroll can translate. Otherwise, I can translate it for you. Asar doros me'adam va'ad noach v'chi ma hutzrach Lovay olam lachach ela lamedecha shekol hadoros hayu machisinu bayin lo hevi hakadosh baruch hu aleihem esmei hamabul bishvil tzadikim v'chasidim shahayu bahem yeshomim kol zman shahaya mesushalach chay lo yorad mabul laolam v'cheshemes mesushalach od nisla lahem shivas yamim la'achar misaso shnamar v'yil shivas hayamim ma tivan shel shivas hayamim halalu Ilume Evlo Shel Tzadik Sheikev as Haporanos. Lefichach Nemar Vahi L'Shivas Hayamim. Davar Acher Vahi L'Shivas Hayamim Melamed Shekava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lehem Zaman L'Acher Mea V'Esrim Shana Shema Yasu Teshuva V'Lo Asu. L'Chach Nemar Vahi L'Shivas Hayamim. Okay. Who has the translation of the Avos to Rabbi Nassan with them?
Okay, I've got it, but you have to tell me where to stop. I couldn't follow the Hebrew note where you quit, so just yell at me to quit when I get there.
Well, I can pre-yell. So on page 443, the end of the second paragraph where it says 7-day period.
Okay, gotcha.
The next word that would say yet, not the paragraph that says other. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. I got it. Okay. All right. The Brisa paraphrases Avos 5:2 and elaborates on it. The Torah records that there were 10 generations from Adam until Noah. Now, what purpose does it serve for those who have come to the world to note there were 10 generations to the creation of man until Noah? Why did the Torah record this? It is only to teach you that all the generations of that time were continuously provoking God. But the Holy One, blessed is He, did not yet bring the flood waters upon them because of the merit of the righteous and the pious ones that were among them. And some say that as long as Methuselah was alive, the flood did not descend unto the world. And furthermore, when Methuselah died, their punishment was delayed for another 7 days after his death. As it is stated, And it came to pass after the 7th-day period, the waters of the flood were upon the earth, as Genesis 7:10. What was the special nature of the 7-day period? These were the 7 days of mourning for the righteous Methuselah, which held back the punishment from coming. Therefore, it says it came to pass after the 7-day period. Other opinions regarding the nature of these 7 days. Another explanation, it came to pass after the 7-day period. What is the significance of these 7 days? This teaches that the Holy One, blessed is he, allotted them another period after the period of 120 years allotted previously, and hoped that perhaps they would repent, but they did not do so. That's why it says it came to pass after the 7-day period.
Okay, so all right, so by understanding this, we're seeing more aspects of what is happening with the righteous people in the world besides Abraham, and also we're seeing God's mercy applied when he remember, this is one of the signs of God's great rage. Obviously, there's no other point in history where he nearly completely wiped out humanity except in the flood, right? So you would think this is the time he's most angry. And what did God say? That's it. I'm going to wipe them out in 120 years. Okay. That's God at the height of his wrath. Okay. This is the patient king that we serve. You know, if could you imagine anyone, saying, that's it, in 120 years, that's not going to punish you, but I mean, that's God's mercy. And then after 120 years, you'd think now, the divine attribute of justice, instead of saying, justice unleashed, as you may find in the comic book or something. So God said, you know what? Now I've reached the point that they know there's no hope. So therefore, let me give them one more chance. Because they know there's no hope. So that means somebody on the edge of repentance, now that they feel, oh, it's too late. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody will say, I'm sorry. But nobody did 7 days later. Therefore, Hashem brought the flood. So whenever you hear people talk about the God of the Old Testament is somehow harsher than the God of a different testament, they don't know what they're talking about. God is merciful. I don't know if I could last 120 seconds before I would shout at someone who really angered me, and God waited 120 years, and it said, you know what? Maybe 7 more days, just in case they finally got the message. It's just hard to. This is one of the hardest parts for me to fully understand. It's just because it's an aspect of God's nature. But how can a being so powerful have so much mercy? Do you know what I'm saying? I just, for me, it's just amazing. It's just hard for me to fully grasp this. But that's our God. That's our King. So, when people are reading a novel, they're looking for who's the protagonist, who's the potential hero of the story. And as you read the 24 books of the Tanakh, of the original Testament, so then you find that God is the protagonist. It's not just one prophet or the other. God is the hero. And what a hero he is. That it's absolutely, it's just, it's more than superhuman. It's beyond human calculation. We just witnessed what God does, and we can't even fully describe it. You can only just say what he did, and there's no way to praise him more than what he did. So just to relate his ways, and that's like saying psalms of praise. It's just amazing. Okay, so another aspect, of course, we learn about the great Methuselah. Methuselah, it was in the merit of Methuselah that the flood didn't come. It was not in the merit of Noah. Methuselah is considered on a higher level than Noah. Also on a higher level than Noah was Abraham. So let's talk about the greatness of the righteous people during this period between Adam and Abraham, and let's also talk about the nature of Noah. Of course, anyone who's studied the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, knows about Rashi, and in Rashi's the famous Rashi, it talks about the righteousness of Noah. So, according to one view, Noah was, when it says that he was righteous in his generations, so it means in his generation he is righteous. Compared to Avram, he's not so righteous. And then another interpretation is, in his generation he was not so righteous because everyone around him was doing constant evil. But if he was with, in other words, if he had like a friend or a study partner who was righteous, so he would be on a higher level. Okay, and it's both are true, that Noah would be on a much higher level if he was, if Abraham was his best friend, but he still would not be Abraham. Why do we know this? Because of Methuselah. Because Methuselah stopped the flood. It did not happen because of Methuselah. So if Methuselah is higher than Noah, so it makes sense that Abraham is also higher than Noah. Because we see Abraham turned around the bad thing, and there was no utter destruction in his generation. In his generation, there was a destruction during the Tower of Babel incident, but the majority of the world's population survived that. It wasn't only Abraham's family surviving. So we see that Abraham and Methuselah were on a different level, a higher level than Noah. Okay, so let's learn more about Methuselah. For this, we'll need a Gemara. If you could go to the Gemara in Sukkah. Gemara in Sukkah, this will be in chapter 5. Uh, 52b. Chapter 5, 52b. Gemara in Sukkah. About 13 lines from the bottom of the Vilna edition of 52b in Sukkah. Nun Beis Amid Beis. Vayazeh Shalom Ashur Ki Yavo V'Artzenu V'Chi Yidroch V'Armanosenu V'Kemanu Alav Shiva Roim V'Shemona Nesichei Adam. And from the Navi. And this is the piece that if Syria should come into our land and break our towers, then I would raise up, in other words, miraculously, 7 special shepherds and 8 elevated people among men. Manin hu Shiva Roim. Who are the great 7 shepherds? David Bamtza, David in the middle. Adam Shesva Meshushalach Miyamino. Abraham Yaakov Moshe Bismillah. Adam, Seth, and Methuselah on his right, on the right hand of David. And on his left hand is Abraham, Yaakov, and Moses. So Ma'anin hu Shemona Nesichei Adam. And what do we mean by the 8 elevated people? Yishai v'Shaul, v'Shmuel Amos, v'Tzefania Tzidkiah, Yeshomrim Chizkiah, V'Mashiach ve'Elio, yesh omrim ve'Elio v'Mashiach. That's in the Rabbeinu Hananiel, the alternative nusach. Okay, so we see from the shepherds that the seven great shepherds, the seven greatest people in history for guiding people, are David. He is considered the greatest. Remember, David suffered the most of anyone in Tanakh, even more than Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu thought he lost his son. David was hunted down by his son. So David suffered even more, and yet he wrote more psalms of praise than anyone in history. So he can give the best advice in history. He's the best shepherd. And on his right hand is Adam, Seth, and Methuselah, and on his left hand is Abraham, Jacob, and Moses. And in ancient times and Talmudic times, right hand was a sign of the greater significance. You start with the hand that was stronger, generally speaking. So therefore, Adam, Seth, and Methuselah in this context are considered higher than Abraham, Jacob, and Moses. Higher. Okay, so this is going to be important as we learn this chapter in Perkei Avos. And then the Nesichei Adam, and it includes Mashiach. But I just wanted to explain the figures mentioned here in Gemara and Sukkah. So Yishai is the father of David. He was one of the 4 tzaddikim who never did a sin in his life. That's Jesse in English. Shaul, King Saul, only his illness made him do evil. He did not willfully sin as a knowing sin when he was healthy. He did a sin, but he thought it was really what God wanted him to do. It was an unfortunate situation. But King Saul, when King Saul was first anointed, he was already a prophet and a general among the people. When King David was first anointed, he was not a prophet. And there was a medrash that says that when David complained about Saul, Shaul, in the medrash, God says, "Why are you talking against Shaul? He was 1,000 times greater than you." We're talking about King David, who's the greatest of the shepherds, even greater than Moses, as a shepherd at least, and yet David was considered not only 1,000th of who Shaul was. So King Saul is not fully understood from Scripture alone, but if you study all the midrashim, you'll realize the difference is that King Shaul was the one chosen by God to lead the Jewish people, actually until the time of Mashiach. But he sinned, so therefore David HaMelech had to rise up to the plate. King David was supposed to be the composer of psalms, but he also became the king, and he became almost a perfect prototype king. He only made a couple mistakes, but he was so King David did an amazing job. But King Shaul was made by God. He was designed by God to do even a better job than King David. He was supposed to rule the Jewish people for thousands of years until Mashiach comes. I mean, that's amazing. That's who King Shaul was. He wasn't just the guy who was sick trying to kill David. You can't just go by the outward appearance. You can't judge such book by the cover. Okay. And then Shmuel, Samuel, King David said that Samuel was equal to Moses and Aaron put together. Moses and his brother Aaron. both of them put together would give you a righteous man like Shmuel. Amos, the prophet Amos, he was an exception to the rule. Normally, prophets are wise, very wise in Torah. Amos was such a charitable individual, such a merciful individual. He became a prophet even though he was not yet a scholar. That's amazing. So he gives hope to anyone who's not yet a great scholar. They could even rise to potential prophecy. Zephaniah, it says about Zephaniah that it's a fact about Zephaniah. As long as he was alive, there was no destruction of the temple, the Beis Hamikdash. The moment Zephaniah died, then there was a destruction of the temple. Even though the prophet Jeremiah was there and the righteous king Tzidkiah, Zedekiah was there, it didn't stop the destruction. So in other words, Zephaniah was a Jewish Methuselah in a sense. Zephaniah was the one who prevented a tragedy. So Methuselah prevented the flood until he passed on, and Zephaniah prevented the destruction of the first temple until he passed on. Tzidkiah, if you look in the book of Kings, the prophet Jeremiah writes that Tzidkiah did evil. He was not a righteous king, but as an individual servant of God, he was so righteous. The Talmud says because of him, the destruction was delayed for 11 years. But he didn't have a shutdown the evil decree like a Zephaniah or Methuselah did. But Zedekiah he did delay in his merit destruction to the people, and even though he's called evil, he was able to achieve what even Noah couldn't do. Remember, Noah was not able to delay in his own merit the flood, but Zedekiah, even though he did evil as a king, he was personally waking up extra early to pray for everyone and doing righteousness at such a level, encouraging people to stay away from idolatry, to the extent that he delayed the destruction in his own way. And but the Rabbeinu Hananiel says, no, it's better you bring Chizkiah instead of Tzidkiah. Chizkiah is Hezekiah, the righteous king, about whom it says nobody trusted God more than Chizkiah, who among the kings of Judah. And then, of course, Mashiach, who we've heard pretty good stuff about, and Eliyahu Navi. Rabbeinu Hananiel reverses that into chronological order to put Eliyahu Navi first before Mashiach. Okay, so just reiterating the seven shepherds from Gemara and Sukkah 52b. David in the middle. David he's the best of them. And then on his right hand is Adam, Seth, and Methuselah. The next tier, and then the next group is Abraham, Jacob, and Moses, the great Moses. Now, as far as halacha goes, Moses is the top. You can't contradict Moses. Even though God revealed to Moses that Rabbi Akiva achieved a greater level of Torah scholarship than Moshe Rabbeinu, still, when it came to halacha, we find several times Rabbi Akiva does not have the halacha go according to him, the actual way that the people decide. So having the law be according to what you say is a gift from God. We find that the kings of Judah had the halacha go according to them. Even among the sons of Jacob, they all listened to Judah, even though he was the fourth born. he was just a natural leader, but also he had a good instinct for halacha. That's a sign of the kings of David's house. They have a good instinct for halacha. If they were not scholars and they became kings, they would still, odds are, they'd still make the right choice. But certainly, when they become scholars, they become the greatest of scholars, like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who edited and formed the Mishnah, like Hillel Hazakin, the great Hillel. These are all from Judah. So that aspect of Judah is kind of like borrowed from Moses. Moses has the correct halacha, even though he's not listed as the first among the shepherds. So shepherds is a different category. But when it comes to halacha, nobody disputes Moses. Even Mashiach cannot overrule Moses. Okay, so just to have an idea, when the resurrection comes, even Mashiach will have to defer to Moses when he's speaking. And that's amazing also. But as far as shepherds, so David is considered higher than Moses and the other shepherds, even Methuselah. As far as Nasichi Adam, the princes of men, so I mean, it doesn't list who's the greatest, who's not. It's more chronological, this listing. So therefore, the Nasichi Adam, we don't know for sure which one is necessarily greater than the other. But all of them are incredibly awesome. But by the seven shepherds, there is a hierarchy here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The great Abraham, who altered the world's history, and from whom God started the Jewish people. Jacob, who raised up 13 children, every one of them incredibly righteous. Moses, who God gave the Torah to, and no human can ever contradict him, ever. Those three are not on the level of Methuselah, okay? In a sense. So, okay, let's return back. Okay, so just recording again, that as long as Methuselah was alive, the flood did not descend on the world. And after he died, it was delayed another 7 days after his death to give them another chance. What if they repent? And what did the 7 days correspond to? An honor to Methuselah. Even after Methuselah had passed from the world, God did not bring the flood. Do you understand that? It's absolutely amazing. No, it's less than a week. How could he bring the flood? It would interrupt the honor due to Methuselah. It's just an amazing idea. Okay, so that is Methuselah. Midrashically.
Question.
Oh, question. Okay. Hello. Hi.
Do you know if the 7 days was so that people could sit Shiva for him?
Yeah. And of course, Noah did sit Shiva for him because he was the main the main Torah teacher of Noah. Noah's father was an idolater, so he couldn't learn Torah from him. He had to learn from his grandfather Methuselah. So now, remember the more the potential reading in Rashi, the potentially more negative connotation about Noah is that he was more susceptible to spiritual influence of a negative nature than was Methuselah or Abraham, right? So once the days of mourning for Methuselah were over, Noah could have been in danger, spiritually speaking. To his credit, just consider this: God destroyed the entire world so Noah could be safe, in a sense, from that perspective. It's like the world was about to be destroyed anyway. Might as well save Noah. I mean, to be someone who the entire world is like nothing before your own merit, if you can understand how righteous that is Noah. And compared to Methuselah and Abraham, he was not comparable almost. Methuselah and Abraham were much higher than Noah. But Noah, he literally had more value than the entire world. You understand? So we're not talking about regular people. So certainly somebody should not be insulting, should not have a long Devar Torah, a 2-hour sermon talking about how much Noah was less than Abraham. I mean, it's ridiculous. The whole Noah was equal to the entire world and preserved instead of the world. I mean, mind-boggling righteousness. But we have to understand, Abraham and Methuselah were higher still. And according to the Gemara in Sukkah, Methuselah was even higher than Abraham. What is the difference between Methuselah and Abraham? What did they accomplish spiritually? Abraham saved 2/3 of the world's population. He saved the lives of 2/3 of the world's population. Methuselah saved everyone. No one died on Methuselah's watch. I don't think, it's very hard to describe how great Methuselah was. We simply have to wait for the resurrection to figure out who is this great person. He was the teacher of Noah. So now you understand, it's anyone who just would pay attention to Methuselah long enough and avoid idolatry automatically would become incredibly elevated. And that's exactly what happened to Noah. But the moment Methuselah was gone, God had to make a choice. You could pick Noah and he could retain all of the spirituality of Methuselah, or you could leave Noah in this world if you want to keep having mercy on those who are killing their friends' spouses, so they could take the wives and killing children. Just a real horrible mess. You could save all these cruel, wicked people, or you could save Noah's spirituality. But if you save Noah's spirituality, you give the entire world for all future generations, even generations that have many wars and cruel people. All of them are descended from Noah. This person who was taken out from the fire and saved from being destroyed. This person who clung to the teachings of the great Methuselah. And that's Noah. He's the forefather of every human being since then, So that's a great Noah. But it's just, when you're talking about Abraham and Methuselah, they're on a different level than, I can't fully describe them, so how could I possibly describe Hashem, But I hope I've captured just some of the essence of who these people are. Noah, God decided he and his family were more important than the entire world. Abraham, God, for his merit, saved 2/3 of the world's population. It's, why destroy them? Abraham's here now. Maybe he'll teach them. Maybe God's always so merciful. It's amazing. And then with Methuselah, there was no need to kill, and no one had to die. There was a chance anyone could make a repentance. Methuselah was still in the world. It's just it's hard for me to fully describe that, but I hope you see the dichotomy here. You see the differences. Okay, so in this state of the world, from the first 20 generations of man until Abraham, there was no need to have a Jewish people, because there was a potential that the people will serve God correctly without establishing a kingdom of priests. You don't have to have a special class of people if everyone's willing to pull the spiritual weight. But by Abraham's time, it became clear too many people didn't want to pull the weight for others. Of course, if everyone, imagine if somebody had to move a car that didn't work. So if you have 100 people lifting up the car, it's pretty simple. Okay, all right, let's go. Bring it down the block. That's it. Everyone take a part of the pole. You can carry the car down the block. It's so light. But then if there's, everybody else wants to go catch a movie or catch a baseball game or something, and so we only got 3 people. Okay, we got to carry the car down the block. So it becomes much more difficult. So God created a class of a spiritual think tank of people, Mamlechas Kohanim, a priestly nation, to fill in for those among the other families of earthlings who may not be willing to carry their weight. Unfortunately, also the priestly nation had times of sin, so that they could no longer do their spiritual job of influencing the world, making it a better place. So if they can't make the world a better place, if they lose the ability to have a temple to be able to pray for the nations, and the classic example, of course, is on Tabernacles, Sukkos holiday. 70 sacrifices of the Musaf prayer correspond to the 70 nations of the world. So, and that's Yom Simchasenu, the day of our rejoicing. So, on the height of the Jewish people's rejoicing, their goal was, okay, come to a high spiritual level, rejoice before God, and now pray for the entire world. But if instead they were doing sins, they couldn't pray for the world. So therefore, the wicked nations destroyed the temple repeatedly. And the temple is where the kingdom of the priestly kingdom would gather to pray for the nations. So the nations were just destroying themselves. So it created a exile atmosphere. And if you look from the time of Abraham until now, the majority of the years of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, most of the years have been in actual exile, either in Egypt or Babylon or the current exile. Even today, a slight majority of Jewish people are still out of the land of Israel. So that is, it's just creates a difficulty. We see that repeatedly in the Medrash. It describes at this point or at that point, God wanted to reverse the effects of this or that curse. Before the golden calf, God was planning to renew the Garden of Eden. And so people can enter the Garden of Eden, and of course Mashiach comes, but it's just the ill effects of sin and curses against humans would have been reversed. That didn't work because of sins. And then, just every time there was a chance to turn things around, there was always a choice for sin. And that's why when it talks about Mashiach time in the prophets, they talk about Ketz Yamin, the end of days. The end of days does not mean the destruction of the earth. Quite the opposite. The end of days means the end of days where people have the freedom to allow evil to reign. Free choice will no longer be given to humans at the end of days. So it's just part of the programming. For sure, there will be a time when people enter that blessed time where everyone's elevated things spiritually, trying to be good to each other, to the point until animals are affected and they no longer want to hurt each other. There won't be a cruelty of nature any longer. It's all going to happen, and according to most rabbis now, it's going to happen very soon. I don't know if there's anyone who still thinks it would not be in this century. Everyone thinks it'll be in this century, and many people think it's going to be within a decade or less. So we're talking about a lot of people saying the end of days of evil is almost upon us. Well, some powerful stuff. Any questions before we talk further about Perkei Avos? Again, that was Avos Rabbi Nassan 32 about Methuselah, and Sukkos, Gemara and Sukkos 52b about the 7 shepherds. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so we're in Perkei Avos chapter 5. We're going to start Mishnah 3. Just let's see, what was the source? Okay, so now Rashi on this Mishnah talks about the fact that the reason Abraham was stood out and was selected for a special category to start the priestly nation, because he took it upon himself to make sure everyone understood how to serve God. Okay. So he would go around and preach. So Abraham was the first traveling preacher. Before him, the son of Noach, Shem, started a yeshiva, a study hall, but his was more along the lines of a monastery. He put it on a mountain so people wouldn't attack it and destroy it, because there were other times when people, where they were against godliness. So people had to climb a mountain and come and learn, and then he would teach them. So Abraham went there, and then of course, Shem's great-grandson Aver also was a teacher there. So it was called the Yeshiva of Shem and Aver. But it was more along the lines of a monastery. It was hard to reach, and it had a select student body. But the God's truth was available on earth because of it. But Avram calculated most people are never going to come here. So we can't just stay on a mountain. People are out there sinning in God's beautiful world instead of recognizing it. So Avram figured it's time to deploy the godliness to the rest of the world. So that was Avram's mission. But to do that unselfishly, he needed more Torah to teach. So because he tried to save the world this way, he was actually the first prophet who learned all of the commandments of the Torah. They weren't written down yet, but he learned the 613 commandments of the Torah. He received it as prophecy. Now, when Abraham received the prophecy, generally it was a dream, or he was speaking to an angel. His wife Sarah, she had a greater level of prophecy according to the Medrash. When she had a prophecy, it would be like almost like a video or a hologram. She would see in real time a dream occurring. Whereas with Moshe Rabbeinu, it was not a dream so much as a conversation. He was on such a level, Moses, that he just spoke to God directly, and he usually did not need to speak to an angel. With Joshua, when he spoke, he usually spoke to an angel, but he also spoke directly, just like Moses. But he wasn't speaking directly to God, he was speaking through an angel, usually. But as far as the revelation, the revealing of secret information, just like we find with Ezekiel about the third temple far in the future, we find by Abraham was the first person to discover all of the 613 commandments. And again, the 630 commandments was not necessarily for that generation. More in the second chapter of Chagiga. So that was the bottom of 13b, top of 14a. So it talks about that God did not want to, at first, he did not plan. Of course, God absolutely knew what people would choose, and so the world we are in now is the world God really planned for. But God made a blueprint. Okay, this is the ideal world I would choose if humans did not try to program my world in negative ways. Okay, so if humans never tampered with God's world, he would have brought the Torah 974 generations later. So we would still be about, well, it depends how you calculate it. Certainly it would be over 800 generations from the time of the giving of the Torah in the future at this time. But God had mercy, and people are making mistakes. So the main thing to do was to preserve human life and this potential for spirituality. So God brought the generations sooner. And the Gemara in Chagiga says that, the type of people who keep making mistakes and trying to bring down the world, like Erev Rav types, the people who just cause riots and stuff. So these are people that would have been born in the future if the Torah was given later. But instead, they were brought all into earlier generations to be able to live life, even though the generations were reduced. Still, the world's population was not reduced. So it's very interesting. That's Gemara Chagiga, second chapter. Okay, so it's really amazing that God changed his ideal plans for humans over and over and over again. And for the wicked, the height of his wrath, it took 120 years and 7 more days before God destroyed the world in the time of Noah. And he still preserved Noah's family. God is so amazing, just amazing. Okay, so Mishnah 3 in 5th chapter of Perkei Avos. Aser nisyonos nisnasa Avram Avinu alav hashalom v'amad b'chulam v'hodia kama chibasu shel Avram Avinu alav hashalom. Do we have a translator? Mishnah 3 of chapter 5. Volunteer translator. Volunteer translator in Zoom land.
Okay, I'll do it.
Oh, okay.
What page?
Mishnah 3. Depends which edition you're using.
I have the one you don't have. So what?
Okay, so on the page that I don't have, yeah, that one. Okay, there. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Sophania?
10 tests.
Are you reading in Sophania?
No, I am transmitting psychically to you. Did you receive that? No? Okay. So the one that starts 10 tests are Father Abraham.
Oh, okay. Is that?
It's on the also. Number 3.
With 10 tests, our father Abraham was tested, and he withstood them all in order to make known how great was our father Abraham's love for God.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
No, that was the Mishnah. So to make known the love of our father Abraham. Okay, now it says by the Akedah, by the when Avram offered Yitzhak, it says, "Now I know that you fear God." It doesn't talk about Avram's love for God. So in other words, this Mishnah is telling us it shows Avram's love for God. So what's the difference between love and fear? So fear means you cannot violate the prohibitions of the Torah. And love of God means you must fulfill the productive mitzvahs of the Torah because God is so wonderful. But it's possible to do the productive commandments from fear. Say, oh, I don't want to lose the reward for all those productive commandments. And it's possible to do the prohibitions from love. Oh, God is so wonderful. He shouldn't be disappointed any further. I want to serve him just like my forefathers. So the tests of Abraham were to show how much Abraham loved God. So one of the purposes, of course, is, I mean, psychologically speaking, it seems obvious to me that God wanted to prove to the world this is why Abraham's descendants deserve to become eventually, some of them became the Jewish people, because he loved so much, so therefore he had to be the forefather of the Jewish people. Now, if you, let's use a metaphor that may actually be true. If there's intelligent life on other planets, so imagine the galaxy one day uniting and being friends with Earthlings. But throughout the galaxy, it's known that the planet Earth was where Mount Sinai is. And that is where God spoke to the universe. So, even though Jews have been abused in human history, and of course not after Mashiach comes, but just whoever was at Mount Sinai could potentially be considered very well respected in universal history. You know what I'm saying? Just like, wow, those are the people who did that. So, to show that God would have done this for everyone. Remember, there was no need for Jewish people. This could have been for anyone. It's just Abraham loved God so much, he saved the world. 2/3 of Noah's descendants survived only because of Abraham. And therefore, certainly he deserves to be the forefather of the Jewish people. So this explains why the Torah is a bit tough with the Jewish people, and history has been tough with the Jewish people if they didn't serve God. You know, this is highest stakes, and the world suffers when the Jews are not able to serve God. And even now, with so many wonderful things that have happened for the Jews, and returning to Israel, but still, it's not for sure known when or how we could naturally deserve or be blessed or have it revealed to us, or however it is. We don't know how we're going to get to the point of having the holy temple be rebuilt, as per the prophecies, as demanded in the prophecies for the world to come to the age of enlightenment of post messianic times. So the progression of world history and spiritual achievement depends on having the third temple built in Jerusalem, in its place on Mount Moriah. And right now, we're not 100% sure how that could happen by natural means. So we're still in a potentially scary time of history, but God's in control. The same God who had mercy for 120 years and 7 days is the same God who's protecting us. God is our hero, and God is setting everything towards a possibility for a majority for billions of people to serve God and live and be well in God's service. And that's amazing. So we see thus far Abraham's dream of saving the world was not fully achieved yet. The Torah of Israel was not fully taught. It was often first perverted or changed or mixed with heresy before it was taught. And that's not the way God wanted, and that's not the way Abraham would have taught it. But the good time is coming. And it's a guaranteed time. And it's a guaranteed result that good and mercy will be happening very soon. And we're on the verge of that time. And it's just amazing how God has created the world. Anything good is possible, but not anything evil is possible. Now, there's some things that are very evil in world history, and some things very painful in world history. But not any evil is possible. God's in charge. It's on his watch. But any good is possible. Any good is possible. And people can achieve that. And remember Methuselah. Before God gave the Torah, before he gave a prophecy of the commandments to Abraham, Methuselah rose to a level higher than Abraham, Jacob, and Moses, and Noah. Methuselah was higher than them all. And he did not have all of the Torah. He just had the traditions from Adam and an absolute conviction to have God's will done. So we could all try to emulate Methuselah. And remember what happened with Methuselah? The longest living man in history until Eliyahu Navi, until Elijah. But Eliyahu Navi first revived he entered heaven alive. without entering Gan Eden, heaven alive, Methuselah lived over 900 years. So it's a natural consequence. You serve God better than everyone else, you're going to get a special reward. So, just think about that. Who's your spiritual competition? Just do better than them. Do better than all of them. And even a person doesn't have a great amount of Torah yet could still achieve greatness. There's charity. There's kindness. There's mercy. There's many ways to do it. So by growing spiritually, we could be good to others, and incidentally, we could also make things better for ourselves as well. Even a little amount of charity is profound. A person who doesn't have enough money for charity, if they gave $5 to charity, they still get the same reward as someone with a lot of money who gives a lot of money to charity. You understand? So when Proverbs says 3 times, "Tzedakah tatzil mimavis," charity saves from death. 3 times. It doesn't say charity, if you give this amount, saves some death. It says charity saves some death. So even a little charity saves some death. So I urge everyone to make sure you have given charity. If you gave charity in a charity box, but nobody picked up the charity box since you gave the charity, you haven't fully given charity. The charity has to reach the person who needs it. So I recommend a diversification. Maybe give $1 to 5 organizations instead of $5 to 1 organization. But make sure somebody benefits from the good that you do. And this is a spiritual, it's a segula, it's very powerful. And it's a holy verse written 3 times over in Mishnah and Proverbs. Charity saves from death. So I want everyone to live and be well, and survive and make it to the next world, and make it through this world, so that we could have the resurrection of the dead, and nobody has to pass away anymore. I think I would vote that maybe there's been enough death in the world. Besides, maybe there may be a few evil people that there's no repentance capable of, and they only want destruction in the world, so maybe they have to go. But everyone else, maybe, who knows how many people could live? God knows. So I just want everyone to live and be well, learn Torah and give charity. Learn Torah, do kindness. And doing kindness can be greater than giving charity. So find a way to help people. But in the time of an illness out there, it's harder to do it. So even remotely given charity is a great level. Okay, so I guess we're about to pause here for this week. So everyone live and be well, and let's meet up again next week.
Chag Sameach Hanukkah.
Yeah, happy Hanukkah. Oh, okay. Remember a couple minor announcements, but could be major. First of all, the biggest announcement, it is Hanukkah. Tonight is also Rosh Chodesh. Tomorrow is in the tri-state area of New York scheduled to be a huge snowstorm, and it's supposed to be worse in the area around Philadelphia. It's a strange coincidence that it's near the area where the most voter fraud is reputed to be. You don't think God might have done, okay, I don't know if I should go there with that concept, but you don't think God may have, okay, well, I'll leave that to your imagination.
He does stuff like this all the time. Every time somebody screws something up, they get like an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado or something like that.
Yeah, and like Katrina happened right after they pressured Israel to give in to the terrorists. You know, so it's amazing. So, and the other thing I wanted to, oh yeah, there is 2 sales during Hanukkah. And Art Scroll and Feldheim both have sales, and Art Scroll on some products have up to 40%, usually 20%, and Feldheim is 20% on their products. And they both have so many different varieties of books. It's amazing. Just among those 2 publishers, they have, you know, they could fill a library just with those 2 publishers, and one book after the other is amazing. Just, you know, maybe if you have a little money you could spare, go to their websites and try not to drool too much, but look at all that amazing Torah. And, you know, Hanukkah goes until this Friday. So it's a good time to consider buying a book. It's artscroll.com or feldheim.com. And well, I guess that's about it for now. And if you have any questions, please write me, rabbifriedlander@gmail.com. And my blog is at rabbifriedlander.wordpress.com. Any questions before we call it an evening?
Not here.
All right. Well, thanks for being wonderful. And thank you for attending the class. And when the link goes up, please be willing to share. And God bless, and look forward to the next time as well.
What's your brother's Hebrew name for davening?
Yeshaya ben Sarah.
Okay.
Yeshaya is the Hebrew version of Isaiah,
Yep.
and the son of Sarah.
Thanks. Lila Tov.
Shabbat Tov, happy Hanukkah, happy Rosh Chodesh.
Thank you for the class, Rabbi. Keep warm in the storm.